The night air over Rome had always carried whispers of the past, but there was one story that lingered longer than most. A tale of a gladiator whose blood never fully dried, whose screams refused to leave the stones of the Colosseum. Witnesses claimed that even centuries after the last roar of the crowds, a shadow still stalked the ancient arena, a phantom whose presence turned day into a shiver of unease. It was said that on moonless nights, when the wind cut across the broken arches and through the tunnels beneath, a figure could be glimpsed pacing the arena floor, its armor tarnished, its eyes hollow pits of sorrow and rage. Who was this gladiator, and why had he not found peace in death? Long before the Colosseum became the grand tourist spectacle we know today, it was a stage of unimaginable cruelty. Completed in 80 CE, under the reign of Emperor Titus, the Flavian Amphitheater, as it was formerly known, could hold up to 50,000 spectators, all eager for spectacle. The arena's construction alone was an engineering marvel, a testament to Roman ambition, yet it was also a monument to suffering. Beneath the sunlit arches, the underground hypogeum, an intricate network of tunnels, cages, and lifts, housed beasts, prisoners, and gladiators awaiting their fate. These corridors were dark, damp, and labyrinthine, a subterranean underworld where the line between life and death blurred. It was in these very passages that the story of the cursed gladiator began. According to surviving scrolls and chroniclers like Suetonius and Cassius Dio, some gladiators were not just trained for combat, they were bound by vows, promises sealed in blood, often against their will. One young man, whose name has been lost to time, had been captured during a campaign in the northern provinces. His life had been stripped from him the moment he stepped into Rome, and he was forced into the brutal world of the arena. Unlike other combatants who fought for fame or survival, he carried a silent defiance in his eyes, a refusal to submit fully to the emperor's will. His opponents fell before him, one by one, yet victory brought no relief. It brought only whispers of vengeance. Historians suggest that a peculiar series of deaths followed his matches. Emperors favored gladiators, trainers, even officials who had overseen his bouts, all dying under mysterious circumstances. Chroniclers debated whether these were coincidences, accidents, or retribution from a man who had already made a pact with fate. But the people of Rome began to speak in hushed tones of a curse, that any who wronged the young fighter, or who merely watched him die, would be haunted by his restless spirit. The arena itself seemed to shudder, as if aware of the injustice. Stones were said to bleed under the torchlight of early morning rituals, and the faint echoes of clashing swords and anguished cries haunted the corridors long after the crowds had dispersed. Legends hold that during a particularly ferocious battle, the gladiator was betrayed by a rival who had been promised freedom in exchange for his death. Cornered, he fought with a fury that seemed almost unnatural, driving his opponent to the ground in a manner described by contemporary accounts as monstrous and inhuman. Yet in the final moments, a blade pierced his chest, ending his life before the eyes of an eager crowd. But witnesses claimed that as he fell, a strange mist rose from his body, coiling through the arena like smoke seeking the heavens. Some reported hearing a voice, low and guttural, muttering curses in the dead man's tongue, curses aimed at the Colosseum itself, at the city of Rome, at those who had delighted in his suffering. From that day on, accounts of supernatural events at the Colosseum became more frequent. Guards reported shadows moving where none should be. Tourists and historians in later centuries claimed to feel icy hands graze their shoulders as they explored the hypogeum. One 17th century monk, chronicling the ruins, wrote of hearing the distant clang of metal and the unmistakable roar of an unseen crowd, though the arena had long been abandoned and overgrown. Even in modern times, paranormal investigators and casual visitors have reported strange temperature drops, fleeting glimpses of a figure in tarnished armor, and the sensation of being watched by eyes that could no longer see. Was it the restless spirit of the betrayed gladiator, forever bound to the arena that had witnessed his suffering? Or merely the echoes of centuries of violence, imprinted in the very stones Before we uncover more, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more chilling history. The story continues deeper in the hypogeum, where the gladiator's spirit is said to linger, refusing to leave. Some who have ventured too far into the tunnels report a sense of vertigo, a disorientation that grows with every step, as if the arena itself is rearranging to trap intruders. Others claim to have seen symbols scratched into the walls, ancient marks that speak of vengeance and an oath unfulfilled. There are even whispers that some tunnels were never meant to exist at all, hidden corridors that appear only to those who are unlucky enough to draw the gladiator's attention. And at the center of it all lies the arena floor, scarred and cracked, where the final moments of the young fighter's life continue to replay, as if trapped in a perpetual loop of agony. But perhaps the most unsettling accounts come from those who have tried to stay overnight within the Colosseum. Travelers report hearing footsteps that do not match their own, the sudden clang of swords against invisible shields, and the faint, desperate cries of a man pleading for mercy that never comes. One 19th century visitor claimed to wake in the dead of night to find a shadow standing over him, eyes glowing like embers, whispering his name in a language long forgotten. He fled, never to return. Yet the Colosseum still stands, silent by day, monstrous by night, a monument not only to Roman ingenuity, but to an enduring curse. It raises a question that no historian has yet answered. Can the echo of suffering remain so strong that it transcends death itself? Or is the phantom simply a product of imagination, magnified by the horrors that once unfolded beneath the arches? As the moon rises over the crumbling walls, one cannot help but feel that somewhere within the Colosseum, the gladiator waits, still defiant, still bound to a world that rejected him. And as the shadows lengthen and the night deepens, a chilling realization emerges. Some who enter the arena never return the same. Those who have witnessed the hypogeum's depths speak of whispers calling them by name, a soft, insistent voice promising retribution for an ancient betrayal. They speak of eyes in the dark, armor glinting with an unholy sheen, and the unmistakable presence of a soul too restless to rest. For centuries, the story of the phantom has persisted, growing with each retelling, until the line between legend and reality has blurred. And there, in the stillness of the ruined Colosseum, the unanswerable question remains: what truly haunts these stones, and who will be the next to feel the gaze of the gladiator who refused to die quietly? The hypogeum beneath the Colosseum stretches like a shadowed labyrinth, a network of tunnels, chambers, and cages that once held both the living and the dead. Today, it is silent, save for the occasional drip of water and the whisper of the wind through broken arches. Yet for centuries, travelers, historians, and more recently, paranormal investigators have claimed that the substructure of the Colosseum is anything but empty. They speak of a presence, a lingering soul who refuses to rest, moving through the dark corridors like a memory of violence made flesh. The gladiator whose betrayal began the curse is said to haunt these tunnels most intensely. Chroniclers in the 16th and 17th centuries noted odd occurrences during guided tours, often writing in fearful tones about how certain parts of the hypogeum seemed to warp perception. Visitors reported that the tunnels grew longer than they should, walls appearing closer or farther away, passages disappearing entirely as if the Colosseum itself were alive. Some who ventured too far claimed to hear the faint scrape of metal on stone, the slow, deliberate steps of armor-clad feet echoing from corridors that should have been empty. It was as though the young fighter, once dragged unwillingly into the arena, was now dragging intruders into his realm, punishing them with the same disorientation he endured in life. Historical records also reveal the meticulous design of the hypogeum. Built in stages under emperors Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, it consisted of 2 levels of subterranean passageways, connected by elevators and trapdoors that allowed animals and gladiators to appear suddenly in the arena above. Scholars often marvel at the engineering, yet a darker truth lingered even then. The lifts were operated by slaves who often feared the shafts themselves, claiming that at night, unseen hands would brush against them, and that cages moved of their own volition. In some accounts, Animals appeared unnaturally agitated, growling at nothing, their eyes following invisible figures. Was this simply superstition, or evidence of the gladiator's spectral presence, moving through the same pathways he had once walked as a prisoner of the arena? Eyewitness accounts become particularly unsettling when considering the reports of 19th and 20th century explorers. One account, recorded in 1870, tells of a group of scholars descending into the hypogeum with lanterns in hand. As they progressed through the twisting corridors, they claimed to hear the clash of swords, the scream of a crowd, and then a voice, low, guttural, and unmistakably human, repeating a single word: revenge. No human was in sight. Another investigator described how he saw shadows coalesce into the faint outline of a man in tarnished armor, pacing the tunnel before vanishing into the darkness, leaving only the metallic echo of his boots behind. More modern reports, from the late 20th and early 21st centuries, describe similar phenomena. Security guards on night patrols report sudden drops in temperature in isolated corridors, sometimes as low as freezing, followed by the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Tourists exploring the ruins in guided nighttime events claim to hear whispers calling their names, see flashes of armor or movement out of the corner of their eyes, and in rare instances, feel a presence physically brush against them. Skeptics argue that such experiences are the product of imagination or suggestibility, but the consistency of these accounts over centuries lends them a chilling credibility. Even historians studying the Colosseum during daylight hours have noted anomalies. Certain shadows appear in the arches where they should not exist, lingering for moments longer than possible given the sun's position. And beneath the arena floor, beneath even the restored hypogeum, some chambers remain inaccessible, blocked by rubble and decay, but locals have long whispered that these sealed areas are where the gladiator's spirit manifests most strongly. It is said that those who peer too closely into the barred tunnels glimpse not just shadows, but faint figures mimicking the positions of ancient combat, reliving the moments of struggle, pain, and betrayal that led to the curse. In addition to the main legend, there are side stories tied to other gladiators who fought in the arena. Some were rumored to have formed pacts with the young fighter in spirit before his death, pledging vengeance from beyond the grave. In certain chroniclers' accounts, a secret society of cursed fighters' ghosts formed a spectral cohort, their anger feeding the eerie occurrences reported throughout the Colosseum. Each night, their footsteps echo in rhythm with a phantom heartbeat, moving unseen among the ruins. Those who claim to have spent the night in the Colosseum report hearing the pounding of this rhythm, almost like the pulse of a world locked in perpetual combat. A heartbeat that will not end until every injustice is accounted for. The historical backdrop only deepens the horror. Ancient Rome was a city of spectacle and death, where thousands met violent ends in service to entertainment and politics. The Colosseum was more than a venue. It was a theater of mortal despair, where the crowd's roar could dictate life or death. Each match added to the residue of suffering embedded in its stones, a psychic imprint that may have left the arena susceptible to hauntings. The betrayal of the young gladiator was only the spark, yet it is perhaps the most enduring, the one that refused to fade, binding itself to every corridor, cage, and trapdoor beneath the arena. Before we uncover more, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more chilling history. The stories take an even darker turn when we consider what some believe to be the gladiator's most terrifying power: the ability to manipulate the arena itself. Visitors have reported doors closing on their own, stone slabs shifting beneath their feet, and entire corridors appearing where no passage should exist. Some claim that the phantom can draw the living into the hypogeum's depths, forcing them to witness endless reenactments of his final battles. Others whisper that those who venture too far risk becoming trapped in a temporal loop, reliving the same terror over and over, as if the arena itself feeds on human fear. Even the surrounding streets of ancient Rome were not immune. Travelers in the 18th century wrote of shadows flitting across the arches at night, of sudden gusts of wind that carried echoes of distant screams, and of strange markings appearing on the walls outside the Colosseum. Could these be signs of the gladiator's restless spirit reaching beyond the ruins? A warning that the curse is not confined to stone and mortar? Or were they merely the echoes of centuries of violence, amplified by imagination and the human tendency to fear the unknown? And so, the question remains, what truly dwells in the Colosseum's hypogeum, and will anyone who dares explore its depths ever return unchanged? Even centuries after the Colosseum's last gladiatorial bloodshed, the shadow of the cursed fighter looms over Rome. Visitors often speak of a sense of weight in the air, a heaviness that presses against the chest, as though the arena itself breathes with the agony of the past. The young gladiator's tale, fragmented across chronicles and whispered legends, is more than an eerie story. It is a reminder that some horrors refuse to die quietly. The side legends of the Colosseum's haunted corridors paint an even darker picture. One tale tells of a gladiator who, though victorious in life, vanished beneath the arena and was never seen again. Witnesses claim his spirit still drifts through the hypogeum, invisible but felt, tugging at the legs of intruders, whispering unintelligible words, leaving faint scorch marks on walls, as if the fury of combat burned even in death. Others speak of the eternal spectator, a ghostly figure sitting among the broken arches, its hollow eyes following every step of those who dare enter. Some claim the spectator is the spirit of a Roman official who condemned the young fighter to death, eternally punished to watch the arena without end. Modern accounts continue to reinforce these ancient fears. Paranormal investigators report anomalies consistent across decades, electronic equipment failing inexplicably, cameras capturing fleeting figures that vanish upon closer inspection, and audio recorders picking up low, guttural voices repeating the word vengeance. Some have claimed that the ghost can manipulate not only perception, but also time, creating moments where past battles replay before the eyes of the living, allowing the living to witness scenes of bloodshed that never truly end. Perhaps the most unsettling encounters are those experienced by historians and guides who spend long hours within the Colosseum. One 20th century guide recounted a night when he descended alone into the hypogeum to inspect a newly uncovered chamber. He reported hearing the clash of swords and a roar of applause that gradually morphed into a scream of pain. Shadows moved independently of light, forming the indistinct shape of a man in armor, pacing the chamber floor. Terrified, the guide fled, yet he described the figure continuing to follow him, appearing in mirrors and reflecting surfaces throughout the ruins. By the time dawn broke, he swore he had glimpsed the phantom sitting on the arena's central stone, waiting patiently, as if expecting someone to join him in eternal combat. The gladiator's curse, as historians suggest, may not be limited to those who physically enter the Colosseum. Some locals report hearing strange noises during thunderstorms, when rain drums against the ancient stones. The combination of water, wind, and the lingering psychic imprint of centuries of suffering seems to awaken something. People claim to have heard the clash of metal, distant cries, and even the sound of an unseen crowd cheering. Though the city streets are empty, it is as though the gladiator's spirit, bound by betrayal and injustice, can reach beyond the ruins, extending his vengeance and keeping his story alive in ways both terrifying and inexplicable. Even today, the notion of the curse is not purely metaphorical. A small group of historians believe that the arena's stones carry a tangible residue of the violence that once unfolded there, a psychic imprint left by trauma and betrayal. Experiments with thermal cameras, infrared sensors, and audio equipment have produced strange anomalies in the hypogeum, often in areas historically linked to the gladiator's final battle. Skeptics dismiss these findings as coincidental, yet the sheer volume of reports across centuries suggests a pattern. Was the young fighter merely an unlucky soul, or did his final oath, an unfulfilled promise for vengeance, bind him to the arena in ways that transcend death itself? Even the Colosseum's restoration efforts have failed to dispel the phantom. Each time scaffolding is erected or tunnels excavated, reports of spectral activity spike. Workers claim to hear footsteps echoing in empty corridors, tools moving on their own, and the unmistakable clang of swords striking invisible shields. Some allege that the cursed gladiator resents the disturbance of the arena's ancient bones, punishing those who tamper with the sacred site of his suffering. The most chilling suggestion of all comes from those who dare to enter the hypogeum at night, alone. They describe a creeping sensation, a presence that observes, measures, and anticipates each step. Some report shadows converging into the vague silhouette of a gladiator, while others hear whispers of names, sometimes their own, sometimes unknown, carried on the wind. The young fighter's spirit, historians and witnesses alike claim, is patient. He waits for the right moment to draw attention to himself, to remind the living that some injustices leave scars far deeper than stone and blood. And so the Colosseum endures, not just as a relic of Roman ingenuity, but as a haunted monument to betrayal and vengeance. The young gladiator, whose life was stolen for the sake of spectacle, refuses to be forgotten. His spirit, whether real or imagined, has embedded itself into the very stones, into the air that moves through the arches, into the rain that falls upon its ruined tiers. Visitors continue to experience his wrath, whether through cold drafts, whispers, or glimpses of shadowed armor, a reminder that history is never entirely silent. For centuries, people have asked, what binds this fighter's spirit so strongly to the Colosseum? Is it the agony of his betrayal, the trauma of combat, or the desire for revenge that keeps him tethered? Perhaps some questions are meant to remain unanswered, leaving us to wonder if the phantom will ever find peace, or if anyone who enters the Colosseum will ever truly leave untouched by his presence. Even as the sun sets over Rome and tourists depart, the shadows lengthen. Somewhere in the hypogeum, the clang of an unseen sword echoes. Somewhere above, the arches wait patiently. And somewhere between the stones and the air, the gladiator watches, waits, and remembers. The Colosseum, with its broken arches and sun-bleached stones, is more than a relic of Roman engineering. It is a vessel of memory, a tomb for thousands of lives cut short for the sake of spectacle. By the time night falls, the arena transforms. The wind that whistles through the arches carries more than the scent of dust and decay. It carries whispers of the past, echoes of screams, and the weight of betrayal. In the deepest parts of the hypogeum, the cursed gladiator is said to move with purpose. Visitors recount seeing glimpses of tarnished armor glinting in the flicker of a flashlight or lantern. Shadows shift unnaturally along the walls, elongating or contracting as though the hypogeum itself is breathing. Some report faint, rhythmic clanging, as if swords are striking invisible shields. For those who linger too long, there is a disorienting sense of time dissolving. One moment, you are in a corridor. The next, the same corridor stretches endlessly before you, and the footsteps behind you grow louder, though no one is there. The gladiator's presence is not merely passive. Historians and paranormal researchers describe a phenomenon they call arena echoing, where the energy of past battles manifests physically. Visitors feel icy hands brush against their shoulders, faint voices call their names, and disembodied laughter punctuates the silence. It is as if the gladiator, along with the spirits of countless others who died in the arena, refuses to let history remain hidden. Each footstep in the hypogeum risks awakening memories of anguish, betrayal, and bloodshed. The curse extends beyond the arena itself. Locals recount that on rainy nights, when water drips through broken stones, and onto the ancient floor, the sound mimics the roar of a crowd. Some claim that shadows dance in rhythm with this phantom applause, forming indistinct figures that vanish when approached. A guide in the early 20th century described a chilling experience. A figure appeared on the arena floor during a sudden storm, pacing deliberately, as though rehearsing for a battle that had ended centuries ago. When the guide blinked, it was gone, but the echo of footsteps lingered. Among the most frightening encounters are those of modern tourists exploring the hypogeum on after-hours tours. Thermal cameras capture fleeting heat signatures where no human exists, Audio recorders pick up faint chanting or the clash of metal. Some report feeling unseen hands guiding or pushing them, a sensation as real as it is terrifying. In some cases, visitors swear the gladiator is watching, measuring, and testing them, his anger, betrayal, and desire for vengeance palpable in the cold air. Even after decades of study and tourism, the Colosseum continues to guard its secrets. Archaeologists uncover new chambers, restoration teams erect scaffolding, and yet each disturbance seems to intensify the hauntings. Those who enter feel a presence that is both patient and relentless, a spirit unwilling to accept the passage of time or the indifference of the living. The gladiator's curse is enduring, a reminder that some suffering leaves permanent traces, that some souls never find rest, and that history itself can take on a life of its own. As the night deepens and the arches darken, one question lingers more heavily than any other. Who will be the next to feel the weight of the gladiator's gaze, the phantom that watches, waits, and remembers? For centuries, the Colosseum has stood silent by day, monstrous by night, and it seems likely that it will continue to do so. Some stories, after all, refuse to end. And in Rome, beneath the crumbling stone and the empty seats, the phantom gladiator remains, a relentless witness to betrayal, a restless soul tethered to a world that took everything from him. The echoes of history will not fade. They will linger in the stones, in the corridors, in the very air, until someone finally understands the full price of the gladiator's curse.